Hey everyone, Tony D with another hot take, and this is the hottest one of all. 4D chess and Trump. Wow. Did I tell you? I'm pretty sure I told you. The Iranian regime does not want to commit suicide, and it would have been suicide for them to go to war with the United States. Right, little doggy? I know. So, Trump gave them an out. He probably signaled to them which bases to bomb, which ones would be ready, that either would be empty or, the personnel would be moved off so they could have this dog and pony show. The Iranians launched 15 missiles, 10 of them hit, 9 hit one base, 1 hit the base that was near the Kurds, and 1 missile landed and didn't go off, and the other 3 got deflected by the base near the Kurds with anti-missile technology. So kudos to the Pentagon for actually getting that to work, because those systems never seem to shoot down anything. But again, I disagree with the entire drone bombing thing and this sort of tactic. However, I have to respect that the moves seem to be working and seem to be taking us to a less warlike position in the Middle East. Because now we have the Iraqis have voted to ask us to leave, and the Iranians have been told in no uncertain terms, through action, not words, that if they step out of line, the Trump administration has no problem killing the leaders. See, when you target the soldiers in an oppressive regime, the regime doesn't really care. Who cares? If you kill a bunch of my soldiers, why do I care? I'm an oppressive tyrant anyway. I kill people every day. Who cares about another bunch of randos who live in my country? They certainly don't. A lot of people got bent out of shape about Soleimani. Soleimani, I predict, when, this shakes out, he will be revealed as sort of the power behind the throne. He was the military leader. So if you bomb Iraq back into the Stone Age, who ends up ahead within Iraq? It would have been Soleimani. He would have been effectively in charge. The mullahs can't be in charge, really, when you're at war. They're scholars. They're religious guys. They don't actually shoot people. They don't actually do that. They sit around, they talk about Islam and pontificate. It's a theocracy. They're the religious leaders of that theocracy. The guy with the actual power was Soleimani. And he had all the contacts. He goes all the way back to the hostage crisis in '79. So this is a guy who's been in power basically 40 years. Now, he wasn't always the number 2 guy, but he was definitely in the mix. And when you've been in the mix that long, you have all the network. You have all the connections. People listen to you and you alone. So, a lot of people said, well, they just replaced him with another guy. That guy doesn't have the connections. Soleimani, in an authoritarian regime, would have all the connections, because he doesn't want any of his young up-and-coming guys to take him out and take his place. That happens. That happens in these regimes. You just kill somebody or get someone killed somehow. They have an accident. And then next thing you know, you're the top general. But being the top general is also very difficult for the very reason he got drone bombed. He becomes a target. When you're that high in the regime, you're a target. Not just from your own people, but from your rivals. A lot of people have been talking about what's on Iranian state TV, which shocks me, because Iranian state TV is really no different than North Korea's state TV. The Iranians have slightly more freedom than the North Koreans, but They live in an oppressive theocracy where the state-controlled TV is what the state wants. So when you see them threatening people, that's the state doing their thing. That's what the North Koreans did. When you see the funeral and, oh, thousands of people came out and cried for Soleimani, that's what the state wants you to know. That's what the Iranian government wants their population to know and or do. So, showing that funeral on CNN out of context, and I feel that a lot of the news organizations here just sort of showed that, like, oh my God, look at all the people that love Soleimani. That doesn't mean they loved him. It just means a state-sponsored event, a lot of people came out. That would have been the Iranian government trying to show the world, hey, this was really bad. You can't show it was really bad if 100 people show up. You have to have thousands and thousands of people flood the streets and beat their chest and go, oh no, oh no. The Ayatollah himself showed up to cry. So that should tell you something. They were desperate to get the world on their side. And the real telltale sign here that this was all a dog and pony show was, where are the Russians? Where are they? They haven't said word one about this whole thing. They're supposedly an ally of the Iranians. They haven't said anything. Where are the Israelis on this? You're telling me you bomb Iran or have an opportunity to bomb Iran, I should say, and the Israelis don't have their planes in the sky? Come on. Come on. The Israelis must have known. The Israelis have an excellent spy service, so they probably knew all on their own. We probably didn't have to tell them. Maybe Trump just assumed they would already know. The Russians, they probably just didn't want a part of Iran's nonsense. Hey, you kind of dug your own hole, so get yourself out. It's probably their attitude. Fortunately for us, I mean, if they had gone to the wall that backed them, that could have been very bad. That could have been ugly. There was a possibility of that, but not too likely. I think Putin at least senses that Trump is trying to be a more peaceful president and actually do something. Again, I end up doing a lot of videos about Trump and people say, oh, you're such a Trump supporter. Not really. I mean, I don't want the guy to fail, but I have to acknowledge his accomplishments. And they are pretty good. He's a pretty good president. So, you have to acknowledge it. I mean, it's not the way I would do things. It's not the way libertarians want things done. But, better than some of the other previous presidents we've had. Certainly way better than Bush, way better than Obama. Yeah, come on, Obama people. You got to admit, Obama's tactic of giving the Iranians money, and it was their money, but they also gave them interest on the money. So I'm told that the Iranians were purchasing a weapon system when we froze their assets back in '79. Something like $400 million came into the States that got frozen. They didn't just refund the $400 million. They refunded the $400 million after it was managed for them and turned into $1.5 billion, something like that. So I don't know why we would give them all that money. I don't know why we would give them interest on that money. Seems like we should keep that interest, but that's just my thinking. Well, you gave us $400 million. Here's your deposit back. I guess fair is fair, but so then when you look back on this peace deal, what was it really? It was really a bribe from Obama to the Iranians. Take this peace deal and we'll give you your money back. Perhaps that you could call that a good short-term solution, but not a good long-term one, because ultimately, what did the Iranians learn from that? They learned, well, if we act like a-holes, eventually they'll give us some money to stop acting like a-holes. So Trump has signaled to the Iranians, no, we're not doing that anymore. And in fact, we're going to kill you if you step out of line again. I think it was a setup with the help of the Saudis. Now, the Saudis have no love for the Iranians, and they probably don't like, Soleimani, and Soleimani was supposedly on his way to a meeting where the Iranians were going to give their response to a peace offering that the Saudis were, messing around with. That's when he got drone striked. He was at the airport, I believe, in Iraq, thinking that Trump is just like all the other presidents. He's not going to go that far out of his way to violate airspace and mess up his chances of being reelected. And I think that's true for a lot of presidents if you look at it. There's a lot of guys who would have said, "Ooh, we can't get him now." So I think Soleimani, who, is very savvy, a lot of people outside our country follow our politics because it impacts them. Now we tend not to follow the politics of other countries at all. But I guarantee you that the rest of the world follows our politics a lot more closely than we follow theirs. So you could rest assured that Soleimani knew what the deal was and was following it all very closely. But that is Trump's great sort of skill in managing his own optics. He lured him in to make him feel safe. He did this Twitter battle and blather that didn't seem to go anywhere, and in the end, he killed them. Now I believe the 600 American servicemen that he supposedly killed, I believe that there's some discussion online that that's a bit of an exaggeration from the Cheney days, the Bush-Cheney days. But that doesn't, he was a murderous guy. He was very murderous. And I don't know if he could be directly linked, but certainly if the guy's been around since 79, he's been up to some hijinks. If you stay that long in power in the Middle East, you've killed a lot of people. And not just Americans. He's definitely killed protesters in Iran. Iran is a terrible regime. It is. It's more modern. It's maybe less terrible than some in some ways, but at the end of the day, they are a despotic regime that eventually needs to go. Now, Trump understands there's different ways to do it. Intervention is not a good way because when you intervene, you may knock out the current regime, but there's no guarantee that the new regime will be any better or be any more competent. What you really want is the people to rise up and have someone, some Iranian who's smarter and better, or you wear them down over the years and maybe they slowly, you look at the Russians, now that they're the Russian Federation, yeah, they're pretty corrupt and they're not choir boys, but they are a lot closer to a freer and more democratic society than they were. And over the years, they will continue, hopefully, to get more free and more democratic because their people will, have more luxury. A middle class will grow. They'll be more peaceful. And, over the years, eventually they'll start to say, the corruption here is bad. We got to start cleaning it up. The United States has gone through phases like that. But getting back to the Iranians, I think the Saudis helped lure in Soleimani. They whacked him. And again, totally against the Constitution, Trump. But nevertheless, if you're going to play this game, you got to play to win. And Trump is playing to win. So then, the bases are attacked. And the first thing that happens is Trump says, "Hey, everybody, it's all good. I'm going to make an announcement tomorrow. Good night." And nothing. Which to me speaks to the showman in Trump. He was being a showman. I'm going to let them all wait till tomorrow morning, and then I'm going to make an announcement at 11, and then of course he doesn't come out at 11. Make him wait a little longer. And the other thing, again, no Russians, no Israelis, nobody else is coming to the Iranians' aid. Nobody else wants their fingerprints on this. At the same time, the Iranians launched this attack. They apparently accidentally shot down a passenger jet where a bunch of Canadians died, some Brits died. I think that was just totally accidental. The Iranians panicked, and it was probably one of the missiles they launched at us, at one of our military bases, and, which is very sad. This is what happens in the fog of war. People get killed. It's terrible. It shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened. Trump shouldn't have went down this path. But again, if you're going to go down this path, win. And go down this path so we don't have to go down it again. So as the dust settles, we can see that the Iranians backed off. They backed off. They don't want to commit suicide. It's easier to oppress their own people. And now that they did launch some rockets, they could just lie till they're already lying. They already said, we killed 80 Americans, and it was a great victory for Iran, and they know never to mess with us. And Trump can turn around and say, well, we took out Soleimani, and they're not going to mess with us, and we didn't lose anybody. So people in Iran, enough of them will believe, it's the United States, the great Satan. They're just lying. And although I wouldn't totally trust the United States military on this, it's quite possible that some people died and the government's kind of sweeping that under the rug. I don't know. That may come out later. Initial reports, I thought I read there were some Iraqi casualties. Now, that could mean deaths or injuries. I don't know why they used that word, but we'll see. We'll see if that eventually comes out. But, you could look at it this way. If it brings about some more peaceful resolution in the Middle East, then maybe it was kind of worth it. And when you really think about it, I mean, shaking the tree like this at least gets us somewhere else, Again, I don't approve of the tactics, but he is taking us somewhere else. We're trapped. And all his prognostications about we want to end the endless wars, we don't want to go to war with Iran, these were all great signs. I mean, they're great signs. They're not good signs. They're great signs that he's actually saying this and pushing this and saying that, So Trump is serious about peace in the Middle East. The question is, will the Iranians finally come to the table and actually settle this thing? To do this, Trump showed them, hey, we are serious about killing you. So, learn from your mistake and actually come to the table and actually think about stopping your nuclear program or whatever programs you got. Will they do it? We'll see. I mean, chances are they're going to try to push this same sort of delaying tactics while Trump sanctions them more. Now, Ilhan Omar, she comes out and says, sanctions are an act of war. That is technically correct. But in this context, it is a de-escalation. Better that he threatened to sanction them than, bomb them. Because once the bombs start, once you destroy all their refineries and destroy their country, what do they got to lose but committing terrorist attacks in the United States? That's when you have to worry. Still, gas up, because gas prices will probably continue to go up, at least for the foreseeable future until this settles. But hopefully this forces the Iranians in a few weeks or months to seriously come to the table and say, hey, let's settle this. Let's get a peace deal. Let's all have peace. and you're going to leave with your heads held high, and we're going to, let you leave, and, it'll be all good. That would be the ideal solution. Will that happen? Well, Trump's trying. I got to give the guy credit for at least trying to get us out of there, or trying to end this thing, or at the very least, making our position there better. If you're going to have these low-level hostilities, you're constantly reacting to things. Trump now is forcing them to react to things. And in the process, he's basically beaten the regime. He's beaten the regime back. They're forced to back off. They don't have a real retaliation, and their rhetoric sounds like, we retaliated and, just enough, and we're not going to do any more. If the United States doesn't do any more, there won't be more fighting. Right? That's the way they come off, as some nervous guys who know their head's on the chopping block. So they make the calculation. It's easier to oppress our own people and convince them we won than to actually lose against the United States and probably get killed, because they just come in and do to us what they did to Iraq. So good for Trump for pursuing peace. I don't admire the tactics, but I have to acknowledge the man knows how to play this game. I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling how good he is at this. What's next? Hopefully a peace deal. Probably won't be for a few weeks or months. Maybe when the news is on to something else. I'm going to go check out Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and see what else people are saying about this. And yeah, so no war. No war.